Alright, so this is a very interesting video today. We have something quite special because we're going to dive into the most creative aspect of AI, in my opinion, which is generative art. I'm going to show you all the different AI tools I personally use to create my own art, and I'm going to show you how you can use them too to create your own masterpieces. If you are interested, stick around to the end to find out not only how you can create your own art pieces, but also how you can sell them to fellow art lovers. So yeah, this is the video, hope you enjoyed. Let's go! I have been really fascinated with this rising art movement called generative art. Although it's been around for a while now, it's been gaining a lot more attention recently because of all the advancements in artificial intelligence. Despite that, I believe that we are still in the early stages. I think this movement is still at its infancy, and I believe that we're going to see a lot more great and truly exceptional generative artists popping up in the next few years. Who knows, maybe one of them is going to be you after watching this video. So I've been experimenting with generative art for the past 2 years, and along the way I picked up some truly powerful tools and even created some of my own to help me generate my art. Today I'm going to explain all of these tools, and I'm going to show you how you can use them to create your own art. These tools are P5.js with sentiment analysis, neural style transfer, some generative models like VQGAN, Diffusion, Scaling, and of course good old Photoshop. So when I first started experimenting with generative art, the first thing I did was to learn how to algorithmically create some shapes and patterns and other stuff like that using a tool called P5.js. P5.js is an extremely easy to use JavaScript library for creative coding, as they call it. You can use it to create designs, illustrations, and even art directly on your browser, by the way, which is great. Here's a side note though. I very quickly discovered that if you want to create your own truly original art, simply having the tools to do so is not good enough. You have to figure out how you can use those tools creatively to make something truly unique. It's a never-ending process, to be honest, but if you really enjoy making this kind of art, you'll have a lot of fun along the way to discovering your own identity, I guess. So for me, I used my background in AI to create a tool that combines P5.js with sentiment analysis to create the initial design, or the shapes, if you will, of a digital painting. So I call this tool Derativo for no particular reason. I just like to name my tools usually. So anyway, how this tool works is that I use specific text from a source as inspiration to create each art piece. I analyze the sentiment in that text using Vader and Flare, which are sentiment analysis tools if you remember from previous videos. When I combine the sentiment scores with Perlin noise, I algorithmically create the shape in the painting. The more negative the sentiment, the more rough and full of edges the shape is going to be, whereas when the sentiment is more positive, the shape is smoother and more curvy. I also use the text to create a unique hashtag identifier called seed to guide the creation of the shape, which makes each design 100% unique. Actually, I have 2 different designs that I created a long time ago from using this technique alone. So let me go get them and show you. I'm back. So here they are. This one for example, I created this using my personal favorite quote from Steve Jobs. It's actually quite beautiful. It's full of edges. It uses a different technique, but the concept is similar because we use sentiment analysis to create this painting. Another painting was this one. I don't really remember the quote I used, or I don't want to remember. But still, it's interesting. It's minimalistic. It's nice. So these were fine, but not that interesting. So I continue experimenting with even more techniques and technologies. That's when I discovered neural style transfer. Neural style transfer allows you to take the style from one image and transfer it to another using neural networks. The concept is very simple, but the technology is very fascinating, so you can check that out later if you want. I'll leave a link in the description below. To see how it looks in real life, I used it to turn my own dog into a canvas painting in the style of cubism. Here she is. Isn't she cute? So yeah, I used a bit of Photoshop to, you know, cut the dog and put it on a background. And then I used one painting from I think it was Picasso or somebody other that uses cubism to transfer the style to this painting. And then I printed it on a canvas. And now it hangs on my office. Isn't she cute? Anyway, thankfully the authors of that work put the code on GitHub and Google Colab. If you don't know what Google Colab is, it is basically a tool that allows you to run code directly on your browser using Google's resources, which is pretty neat. And I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Alright, so now we are here at Google Colab, the official Google Colab of Neural Style Transfer. So we have to run a few commands first. Yeah, run anyway. So these commands don't really matter. They just, you know, install the TensorFlow version that you require, the libraries that you need to create this art. So just click play and it will do it for you. And it also creates some paths and downloads the code from the official GitHub repository. Yeah. So the important things that we need to do here is here are network parameters. What you need to change really is that the image size that you're going to use, if you want it to be higher resolution, but it can't be that high because of limited resources. So I think I'm not going to change. The important thing is to change the number of iterations, which means how many sample is going to generate before you get the final image. So the higher the number of iterations, the better the outcome is going to be generally. But I think 100 iterations is good enough for what we're going to see now. I'm going to show you an example. Now I'm going to upload the content image. This is the original image that we want to transfer the style to. This guy in the hoodie. So we're uploading this picture. Yeah, we're just going to view it here on the browser. So this is the picture we're going to change and turn into a painting simply using your style transfer. Now we need to choose the style. For this, I chose this picture, which is from the anime JoJo, if you're familiar with it, because I like, you know, the anime style and the shadows in the picture. I want to transfer this style to that image and see what we get. So what we do now is go ahead and run it, and all it's left is for us to wait until it finishes. So let's fast forward now and let's jump into the future to see the result. And we're back. Now we are about 98%, 99% there. So let's see what we get right about now. Right about now. Oh, here it is. Okay, so thank you for letting me know, Google. This is what we got. You might like it, you might not, but you know, this generative art thing is more like a trial and error, and you get to combine techniques and improve your art over time. This is definitely not anything special, but you can see how it has transferred the style from the original image. Let's save it and let's compare it. Here's the original on the left, and here's the one with the style transfer on the right. It looks a bit more like JoJo, but not that much. It wasn't that successful, but it is interesting to see how it changes with diamond shapes and the shadows, and you know, It's interesting, and that's how you do it. If you're more tech savvy, you can download the code from GitHub and play around it a bit more yourself. I really like Neural Style Transfer, and I sometimes use it to make adjustments to my art as well. Although it is great, there are a lot more interesting AI tools out there, like generative models, which we are about to see now. Now let's move on to something a lot more interesting. There is this tool that uses diffusion to generate images based on a text description. For example, this painting was generated using the following description. This is truly amazing that you can use an AI tool to generate images simply by providing some text description. And although it is fascinating, I don't personally use this tool yet, but I'm going to show you how you can use it to create your own art. I would recommend, if you want to use Diffusion, to read some of the tutorials first. But right now I'm going to show you a very simple example of how to generate that image that I just showed you. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is the Discord Diffusion version 5.5 as of this shooting of this video, and it's a bit more complicated to use. But we're going to see just the example, the most basic thing you can do. And I would recommend going through the tutorials and even joining the community if you are really serious about using this notebook and Diffusion in general to generate your arts. Let's go ahead and run everything that needs to be run. Yeah, just run the initial steps. Just it needs to connect to your Google Drive so it can store the output images there. So let's go ahead and do that. In case you want to use CPU, you can click this one, but we don't want to use CPU anyways. I'm just clicking everything and let's skip to the point that it's actually important. Here's the first thing that you can change, which is the diffusion model itself that you're going to use. They recently added a watercolor diffusion, for example, and pulp sci-fi diffusion, which is, I guess, is something custom that the community created. It's a very active community, as I said, but let's go ahead and leave the default settings here as well. Now let's scroll down. This is not that important. Here, this is the most important part, because this is where you put the settings of your diffusion model. This is the bash name, basically, what you're going to name this iteration of, diffusion, and where you're going to save the output. Steps is the number of steps that the algorithm is going to run. The more the steps, the higher the quality of the final output. This is the dimensions of the image. I wouldn't recommend increasing these dimensions too much in the beginning. Maybe I would even recommend decreasing them, because it takes a lot longer to generate the image, even with the higher the resolution. Yeah, in case you have an initial image, then what this means is that you provide an image in the beginning, and the diffusion model starts to generate what you told it to based on that initial image. But you would want to skip some steps from the diffusion process, actually about 50% of the steps. But I wouldn't recommend doing that in the beginning if you're just starting out. So let's go ahead and leave the default settings here. By the way, you have the option to generate animations and videos from your diffusion runs, but we're not going to do that. We're just, clicking play to everything. So the important part was settings, actually, and the other important part is the text that you're going to use. The text is how you describe the painting or the image that you want to generate. For example, this is what we saw before, which is a beautiful painting of a singular lighthouse. So you can have a single description for the painting, but you can also have multiple elements in that description, and you can separate them using quotes. So this is one element that the diffusion model tries to generate, and this is another element, the yellow color scheme. right? So you can have multiple elements, and the diffusion model tries to optimize all those aspects of the description as it runs. You can experiment with these text inputs and see what you can generate and adjust it based on your preferences and what kind of art you want to create. So the final step is the actual diffusion that we need to do. Here we want to say how many times do we want to display the painting as the algorithm runs. So every 20 steps we are going to see the output painting. This means that it's going to run 50 times to create 50 different batches. And let's go ahead and run this as well. That's how you do it with Diffusion. I'm positive that if you learn how to use this tool in detail, you'll be able to generate some truly exceptional, never seen before art yourselves. As I said, I don't personally use this tool. Instead, I use something very similar, which is called VQGAN. I'll leave a link in the description for that too as well if you want to check it out. For my art, what I do is use the Radivo, the tool I created myself, to create this initial design from a specific source, as I showed you before. I then take this design and use it as the initial image of the model to guide the creation of the painting around this unique shape. There is one big issue with using AI to create art though, and that is low resolution because of limited resources and how the algorithms work. So I needed a way to increase the resolution of the final images without losing any quality. Thankfully, there are two ways you can do it. The first one, you can use another powerful model to scale up your images called Real ESR GAN, and the link for that tool is in the description. It's another Google collab. You can also download the code from GitHub as well if you prefer to. The issue with this tool is that it might remove some details from your painting because it thinks they are noise. But as we know, we might want some of those details to be there. So I use this only when I create more modern and abstract art that I don't really care that much about specific texture, and I'm willing to lose some of that detail. Another way you can use to increase the resolution of your images without losing any of that precious detail is by using Photoshop to scale up those images. Specifically, you need to use the preserve detail option when you scale up your image. This works quite well most of the time, but the quality of the image itself might be a little worse than that of the real ESR GAN. So it's a trade-off depending on what you're looking for. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some of my own art that I created using some of those tools and combining them with my own tools. This is the art. These are 3 examples of that art. This is my personal favorite so far. It is called Collateral. I created this using a paper that was published right after the 2008 financial crisis. It depicts the crisis, the financial crisis, and the grim outcome it had on people's mental health and of course people that lost their lives. So I love that painting. So this is another example of my art, which is a more simplistic design. It is about it was created for the Pride Month, and it was inspired by a quote from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the TV series. I really like this quote, and I was able to capture the sentiment behind that and turn it into this picture of 2 people kissing, therefore just a kiss. Okay, so this painting is called A Place Without Darkness. It was inspired by the quote, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness," which is a quote from the book of George Orwell, 1984. I really like this book. I really like this quote. So that's what I wanted to depict, and I really like this piece as well. So I think you get the idea. There are many great things you can do yourselves and create your own art. If you want to check out all of my art, I will be publishing it online for a new project I'm currently working on called Apnea 1984. But I'll talk a little bit about that project later. Now let's move on to the other part of this video, which is how to sell your art. So there are many ways you can sell your art online these days. Websites like Society6 and Redbubble allow you to sell your art without any initial costs. Those options are good enough if you are just starting out, but if you want more control over monetizing your art and building an audience around it, then there is a different but a bit more challenging route to take. That is through building your own online store and integrating with a print-on-demand service. I personally used Shopify to build my online store, which was very easy and requires no code to do so, and I will recommend it regardless of your experience. Your coding experience, that is. To print my paintings on paper and canvases, I used something called print on demand. Print on demand is when you find your own manufacturer or supplier to print your art for you only when you receive an order from your store, meaning that you keep no stock and therefore don't have any significant initial costs. I experimented with 3 different print on demand providers. Those were Printful, Printify, and Prodigy. Initially I was going to go with Prodigy because they are more affordable and they provide more printing options like rolled up canvases, for example. So this is a sample of some of my early paintings I received from Prodigy when I was, trying to figure out which service to use. Unfortunately, they are based in the UK, unfortunately, and after Brexit, working with them became a lot more complicated and expensive. I wouldn't want to get lost in additional taxes and regulations, so I ditched Prodigy in the end. I ended up choosing Printful instead, which provides less printing options, especially for canvases, but it is characterized by its relatively high quality art papers, which is something nice. They also have many fulfillment locations around the world, which makes it a lot more easier to sell art everywhere. This is how I sell my art, and I think you could very easily do it too. If you have any questions on how to do that, I will be helping you in the comments below, so feel free to ask them there. Okay, so this is the perfect time to share a project that I have been working on for a while now called Apnea 1984. The goal of this project is to help in making the world a tiny bit better by donating profits from selling my art into important and sensitive causes. For this project, I will be making exactly 328 paintings around a variety of societal issues, and 50% of the profits of any profits coming from monetizing my art will go directly to causes that our community chooses. Why 328? Because that's the number of pages of the original version of the book that this project drives inspiration from. I think you can very easily figure out which book I'm referring to. I really think it's a creative and fun way we can make an impact with art together as a community. So I'm really looking forward to it. Leave any comments below this video if you have any suggestions for this project or any questions that you need to ask. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully you learned something today, or at the very least you found this video, interesting and entertaining. Check out apnea1994.com. Like and subscribe to support the development of this channel because we are just getting started.